Hey guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts. Welcome to my craft room. I had a request to show how I square up a block that has more than just two pieces like the half square triangle. So I thought today we would discuss 9 patches. I'm going to be making a wall hanging out of this fabric, and I'm going to be using this gray for the sashings and the border around it. So I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and use these 9 patches for our discussion. These two are already trimmed up. I have trimmed them up to 6 inches. Now, of course, these started as 2.5 inch squares, and I stitched them together in the 9 patch design using a 1/4 inch seam. And apparently, somewhere along the line between my stitching and my pressing, my squares are not all perfect. My block should have finished up at a 6.5 inch before I put it into my quilt, but as you can see, it's just a 6 inch. But that's okay, because the thing is, when you're stitching, a 1/4 inch seam is an amazing thing. But for this project, I'm just doing the 9 patches, and I'm going to be using sashing and the border. So it's more about being consistent. Whatever my seam allowance I use, which I measured and I checked, and I think a lot of it has to do with my pressing, it's just off. I don't know. I have the hardest time with it. So whatever this is, all of my squares, all of my 9 patches are going to be the same. So ultimately, it's not going to matter. As long as they all come out the same size, 6 inches, it'll work out in the end. Okay, if we look at this patch, if we look at this 9 patch, we can see that it's about a 1/4 inch. It's about 6 1/4 all the way around. But what I decided to do, just in case anything's a little bit wonky, I'm going to trim mine all down to 6 inches. They'll all be the same size, and that way everything will work out. So what I do is I'm going to line up. I have the option of lining up on this seam or on this seam. So when I put my ruler over, I can line up, say, this 2 inch mark. I can follow this line down here and make sure that's lined up, and I can use that and just trim this side off. And in the same way, I could also use this line to trim off my top side. But what I like to do is I like to figure out what size I'm going to trim to, and I'm going to go down to 6 inches. And just like in the half square triangles, I want to make sure I have fabric past the 6 inch mark on the bottom and the left hand side. Now with a 9 patch, you have this square right here in the center, which is really convenient because I can just pick a square right here on my ruler and line that up there. So my seams are all within this square. Sometimes it's a little off, sometimes it's just right. But then once again, I just need to make sure I have 6 inches all the way around. So I'm lined up, my fabric's passed, then I just trim it off. And without moving my ruler, I can also trim off the top, and that way I'll have a nice square corner. Close my blade this time. I put a new blade in today, and I've already nicked my finger once, so I'm trying to be very careful. I take my corner, bring it to the opposite side, and now I'm going to be able to line up the left and the bottom on the 6 inch ruler, 6 inch line. Trim my right side. And trim the top. And now I have my 6 inch 9 patch. So whenever I'm looking at a project and deciding how I need to trim it up, I try to find one of my seam lines to align my ruler to that'll allow me to pick a side. So I'll always say, from this edge to this line, I always put my 2 inch line on this seam, and then I'll trim it. And then I could flip it put my 2-inch, 2-inch, and trim it. And I can just keep going through that way. So if you, it doesn't even matter how many squares you have. If this happened to have been an 18 patch or 24 or however many squares you have, or even just a simple 4 patch, just find a spot, determine your size, line it up on the seam, and then trim it. And it's really that easy. It's really not complicated on simple blocks like this. I really like how these fabrics look with the gray sashing, so this is going to make a really nice wall hanging. If you like this video, please go ahead and like it down below, and if you'd like to see more like this, please go ahead and subscribe. Once I hit 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, I'm actually going to be giving away this finished wall hanging. So if this is something you'd like, please go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye! Hey guys, I just wanted to pop back in, and before I disappear for the day, I wanted to show you, with my first set of blocks, I ironed the seams in one direction for my rows, but when I stitched them together, I went ahead and ironed them open. So I wanted to see if there would be any difference if I ironed all of my seams open when I made my 9 patch. Now I'm very consistent. My 9 patch still came out at 6 1/4 before I trim it. So I'm definitely not losing it in the pressing. I am losing it in the stitching part of it. But I did find that it was a lot easier to match up my corners here on my seams as I was stitching it all together, the rows, with the seams open. Now I really don't want to be a convert because it is so much easier just to press the seams to one side. But I'm starting to kind of like this pressing them open thing. It lays a lot flatter. I don't feel all the lumps like I do when on this one, because you can really feel the seams in the corner here. It's still, I mean, it's all the same, I guess, but it's still I could feel the seams, and they feel much lumpier. And I know when I quilt over them that I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to hear the ta-tunk, ta-tunk, ta-tunk. So when I make my next set, because I will be making more than one wall hanging, I think I'm definitely going to try pressing all my seams open and see how that feels when I go ahead and quilt it. Plus also, look at how different they look by using more of the brown gold for the outer 5 versus just the center. I might have to make up enough for both of the wall hangings and just mix them up so I can have a good mixture of the 2 colors together, because I really like it. Alright, that's it. Thanks guys for listening. Have a great day. Bye.